Hey everyone, Commander Josh Hawkins here, and at the time of sending you this broadcast, this is the view from my cockpit, sitting 150 light-years away from a medium-sized nebula in the Hypeo-Prow sector. Since my last transmission, I've traveled another 3,000 light-years to reach my current position, and although the trip itself was uneventful, there were a few notable locations along the way. Of particular mention was a seemingly unremarkable area of space I passed through that happened to contain a very high number of O-type stars, 17 of them to be exact, all within roughly a 200 light-year radius. O-type stars are hot, blue-white stars that only live around 10 million years. Because they're so massive, they burn out their nuclear fuel at a very fast pace, and their lives end quickly and violently in a supernova, leaving behind a neutron star or black hole. Aside from being extremely large, they're also the rarest, consisting of only 0.00003% of all main sequence stars. So seeing this many together all in one place was a rare sight indeed. Welcome to Exploring the Milky Way Galaxy, Part 8. The nebula before me is roughly 120 light-years wide, 109 light-years tall, and 110 light-years deep. And with images taken at 10 to 15 light-year intervals, it required almost 70 hyperspace jumps covering a distance of approximately 850 additional light-years and almost a full day of travel in order to circumnavigate it for a 360-degree view from this distance. A nebula of this size contains many thousands of stars, which could take one person months to map out in detail, and since I don't have the supplies on board for that type of mission, I won't be attempting to do anything quite so time-consuming. For the purpose of surveying a nebula of this size, I typically choose an entry point and an exit point, and I sample as many stars as I can within that volume of space as I travel through the nebula. It gives me enough data to estimate the total number of stars, as well as how many habitable worlds it may contain for future exploration missions. And my next broadcast will contain footage of that survey. But I haven't entered the nebula just yet. I'm still in the process of scanning the surrounding stars for anything of particular interest, and found a couple of systems I'd like to check out before moving inside. The shape of the nebula and the type of stars picked up in my scans provide me with some clues as to how its shape and features evolved. The lower region of the nebula appears dark and contains hundreds of M and K-type main sequence stars, as well as many protostars still forming off the vast amounts of hydrogen gas contained in this denser region. While the upper portion of the nebula contains several B-type stars and a half-dozen or so neutron stars within a large cavity of diffuse gas and dust at the top of the nebula. This tells the story of several extremely large stars whose incredible radiation likely carved out the upper portion, revealing the beautiful colors within before obliterating themselves in a supernova. The reddish colors in the heart of the nebula are mostly hydrogen and helium, while the ghostly green points to a concentration of both argon and molecular oxygen spread throughout the nebula from the explosion of the massive stars that had shed off their outer layers. The excited molecules glow green in a single, extremely narrow wavelength of only 557.7 nanometers, when the energetic oxygen atoms decay to lower, but still excited, energy levels. And this green radiation is only possible in the vacuum of space. Arriving at this nebula marks a particular significance in my journey, since it's exactly 3 months today that I first left the bubble. Although my current distance from home is only 27,245 light-years, I didn't get here by traveling in a straight line. In fact, my total hyperspace distance is currently 65,805 light-years, which is roughly the distance of the farthest point in the galaxy from inhabited space. My trip has been much more of a zigzag through each sector, sometimes taking me several thousand light-years above or below the galactic plane in order to visit rare sites along the way. Considering that I'm only a little less than halfway to the far side of the galaxy, I can only imagine how much I'll have traveled to get there and eventually home again. Though I'm in no rush to turn around, I've estimated how long the trip will take, and my calculations indicate that at my current pace, it will take me a complete year or more to reach my destination and then return home. But who knows what'll happen along the way. I've considered the possibility that I may in fact never return home. Space, after all, is treacherous, and a journey of this proportion certainly doesn't come without its dangers. In my first few months, I've made many mistakes that left me white-knuckled and pumped full of adrenaline. Mistakes that I have certainly learned from and don't care to repeat again. Although I won't lie, some things are just too hard to resist, just to say I did it. Like making a speeding pass through a quartet of stars, or flying in for an up-close look at canyons filled with spiked mountains from hell. And despite my previous mistakes, I may still descend into such a place in order to fulfill the desires of my adventurous nature. Since just flying around and scanning planets and stars can become a little monotonous at times. Admittedly, I don't spend as much time on the surface of planets as I do in space, only because I'm much more fascinated by astronomical objects and wonders than geology. But I am an explorer after all, and being an explorer doesn't mean you just scan planets and stars. Each new world I come across is a veritable universe in its own right, and the unknown holds many wonders that call out to me. And there's an entire galaxy out there just begging to be discovered. Despite the tens of thousands of light years I've traveled in space, I've also traveled almost 250 kilometers in my SRV so far, and found some really incredible places along the way. The moon you see before you is just one of those places I came across recently. As a kid, I was fascinated by dinosaurs. The planet I grew up on had been terraformed, so there hadn't been any life on it before humans arrived, but I remember seeing hollow recordings of the dinosaurs they had cloned from fossilized DNA back on Earth, and this little moon reminded me of one of my favorites. So I've decided to name it Dimetrodon. The serpentine-like ridges, rising many kilometers from the surface, resemble the large sail formed by elongated spines on those ancient creatures' backs. And the canyons, snaking hundreds of kilometers across the moon's surface, reminds me of the fossilized remains that our ancestors first found back in the 20th century. One particular area of the canyons opened up into a wider range, and I stopped to survey it from up top before going on a little excursion in my SRV. It took quite some time to find a way down to the bottom, but once I did, I spent a fair amount of time exploring all the little hidden passages that the mountains between the canyon walls had created. Passages just barely large enough to drive an SRV through, which was already made difficult by the fact that the moon was quite small, with only 0.04 times the gravity of Earth. Every little bump or turn left me slipping and sliding around the surface on this rocky little moon, so driving the SRV was done slowly. And even then, I still did a fair amount of bouncing around. But it was truly worth it, since there are few places in the galaxy that I've found so far that offer a view of the sky like this. After driving around for an hour or so, I decided to recall my ship and did a little more surveying of the planet's canyons, which contained beautiful little mesas dwarfed by the towering stone walls rising high above the surface. I wanted to spend a lot more time on that planet. There were just so many hidden places I wanted to see, and I found it really difficult to pull myself away and head back off into space. Was it the beauty of the winding canyons, the razor-sharp ridgelines cutting across the surface, or perhaps the towering canyon walls? Aside from being inside my ship, I haven't really had that sense of being enclosed until I drove around on this moon, and I think that the feeling of having walls around me reminded me a little of what it felt like to be at home. It was the first place I stopped, where in a strange way, I felt kind of safe. Maybe I could build myself a little home there, on those mesas, wake up Commander Shannon Day from her cryosleep and start a little colony of our own here. Oh right, Commander Shannon Day. I forgot to tell you, I decoded a few more of the logs from her pod. Seems like getting rid of that artifact didn't really fix her problems after all. Here's what my computer's been able to decode so far.
Commander's log, day 13. Things are back to normal. Well, kinda. Little problems still seem to be popping up, but they are much more manageable than before. I'm guessing this is just some residual effects of the artifact wreaking havoc on my systems. I'd read the reports of other commanders' systems being affected by the artifact, but I must have underestimated the extent of damage that they could cause because nothing I have read ever indicated problems like I had. I just wish I would have had more time to study the artifact. At least I had a chance to get some data using the new scanners that Sosha installed. I barely know him, but he sure was eager to help. And how could I turn down help from one of Dr. Arcanon's assistants? I'm excited to review the scan data tomorrow once the computer finishes processing it. In the meantime, I still have some diagnostics to run on a few more of the affected systems. Commander's log, day 14. My computer is still working on the data captured from Sosha's scanners. I didn't think it would take this long, and I'm starting to wonder if the malfunctions broke something in my computer. The diagnostics I ran showed fluctuations in the ship's power distributor, which makes sense considering the problems I've been having, but it's also reading anomalies with cartographics, navigation, and communications. The computer reports them all as being fully functional, though I'm not really sure what to make of it. I'm still trying to pinpoint the cause of the glitch, but I hope it's just a diagnostic error. This couldn't be an easy trip, right? Commander's log, day 14. Supplemental. Okay, there is definitely something wrong with cartographics. I'm looking back over the past few days of jump data, and none of it matches up with the discovery data from the systems that I've passed. I don't even think I know where I am or where I'm located right now. The computer says I'm on course, but I just ran a manual check of the system data, and there's no way that the computer is right. Meanwhile, the ship is continuing on its autopilot course, and I can't seem to shut down navigations. I sent an emergency communication back home, but if the ship is headed in the wrong way and navigations is malfunctioning, I don't know if the broadcast array will even be pointed in the right direction.
Well, sounds like a tragic story for sure, but luckily for her, it has a happy ending. She's rescued. Well, she doesn't know it yet, but yeah, she's rescued. Not the first time I've heard of an explorer with ship malfunctions. Back as a prospector, I heard plenty of stories of pilots getting lost in space. Not even far from home either. Doesn't take much. Bump into the wrong asteroid, damage a critical system like that, and next thing you know, you're 5,000 light years in the wrong direction. See, kids? This is why they tell you to pay attention during astronavigation and quantum computing class. I sure hope the Federation ups their requirements for a pilot's license. Right now, it seems like they're just giving ships away to anyone who passed basic hyperspace theory. Well, that's it for now. I'll be sure to send you back some amazing images from inside this nebula with my next transmission, and just in case anyone who's watching knows anything more about this Commander Shannon day, I'll include my next waypoint information in a data packet along with this transmission. For now, this is Commander Josh Hawkins, signing off. I hope you enjoyed this installment in the series. If you did, please click the like button, and don't forget to subscribe.